Namaste, Hari Om. Welcome one and all to Soham Vidya, and I'm Dr. Malladi Srinivas Sastri. I'm the host today, and I'm so pleased to have Dr. Sri Kumar as my guest, um, whom I'll introduce in a moment. But today, being Republic Day, happy Republic Day to everyone. Um, I'll start with a short presentation of connecting dots from past to future. And it's a short video I have just recorded a little while ago. So kindly bear with it in case it looks a little jarry at any point of time. Okay, so let me just...
Welcome to Soham Vidya. I'm Dr. Malladi Srinivasa Sastri. Our topic for today is connecting the dots from past to future, and our goal is to empower common man to reroute with native wisdom. Ano Bhadrakritavo Yantu Vishwataha is the noble saying from the Vedas, which means let noble thoughts come to me from all directions. Why connect the dots from past to future? What will be covered in this presentation is the present challenge, the goal, and the method we will follow. Bharat was a cradle of innovation of formal and informal knowledge systems, be it philosophy, spirituality, science, law and administration, art forms, languages, and many more. Yet, all these being great stuff, these are forgotten due to guilt, shame, and low civilizational self-worth. Despite owning complete responsibility for a failed societal structural system of jati or caste, but still demonstrating the civilizational will to make amends and march ahead with time. Yet after 70 years of independence, we are still made to feel perpetually guilty and ashamed for what we inherited and are expected to disown the glorious inheritance too. This is a result of misguided and manipulative narrative that this is all pseudoscientific dogma painted so by the nexus of adharmic forces, aiming to covertly annihilate this longest continuing civilization of the ancient world that valued and promoted native wisdom. It was too late by the time we realized. To reverse the terrible damage done to the civilizational conscience, the generations have been uprooted and alienated from its native wisdom, whether it is formal or informal knowledge systems. Ironically, its own people are framing policies of self-annihilation. The result, which we can see from the list below, can you name one who isn't uprooted from native wisdom? Teachers, students, parents, grandparents, politicians, policymakers, professionals, judiciary. Is modern society really providing me an opportunity for a guided, uncompromising, self-exploratory quest to know myself? This is the actual Vidya. And what about the conversions? Yes, we often talk about the religious conversions or the ideological conversions, which are but monotheistic, dogmatic, exclusivist, predatory, religious and political ideological movements, working in tandem to annihilate Sanatana Dharma and native faiths of the world. But there are others as well, which are the cultural and linguistic conversions, which we often voluntarily participate in, or it seems to be the case. All these happen at overt or covert level, or forced or voluntary. Our goal is to empower common man to reroute with dharma or native wisdom, and also to develop dharmic leadership. And the method for that is to realize dharma, which is to research dharma and native wisdom, endorse its universally applicable principles, apply dharma in daily life, learn lifelong by constant practice and lead by example, and incorporate our learnings in our daily life, which we can zealously propagate through satsanga so that we empower every common man to implement, realize dharma strategy and become dharma leader. I am a dharma leader. My example of realized dharma strategy is Sanatana Dharma and personal development. Are you a dharma leader? Do you know of a Dharma leader? Please let us know. Dhanyavad.
Thanks for watching that short video. It's about connecting dots from past to future, which is the theme for today as well. And it's an honor for me to have Sri Kumarji today with us, who is an expert proponent of holistic farming, as most of you would know. An interesting anecdote for today is that when I sent this flyer the first time round, he pointed out that the oxen in that picture are not Vedic as such, because as per Apastamba Sutra or Apastamba, it should be 8 oxen at least for a pious man to do the farming. And if it is 2, then definitely the person is cruel. So I had to change the picture. I had to change it to the next one, for which he pointed out that yet again this picture isn't suitable for regenerative farming, because there shouldn't be any space in between the sown seeds, and also it should be a combination of crops, and it shouldn't be just one crop. So yet again I failed in picking the right kind of a picture. What it demonstrates is the lack of knowledge in a person like me, or perhaps most of the nation as such. Where are we right now, and what was the kind of right practice Vedic tradition would teach us, the holistic way. And I want to really hear from Dr. Sri Kumarji more about the impact of the principles we can learn from Vedic farming on holistic living. To start with, I would welcome him to do a short presentation so that we get a basic understanding of what he's going to propose to us today, followed by an interview and picking up questions from the audience as well. I would encourage participants to put their questions in the chat box so that we can spare some time for it at the end. And kindly mute yourself throughout the presentation, and kindly allow us to have a smooth sailing proceeding today. All right, over to you, Dr. Sri Kumarji, so that you can do the presentation.
Namaste to all. Happy Republic Day today. At first, I would like to thank Soham Vidya for giving an opportunity to speak, to connect the dots, as he was saying. And to going through the site, I could understand actually you are doing a very good job connecting people today. So with regard to the time, I would like to straight away go to the presentation which I would like to share. So the topic that was decided to be shared today was the Vedic perspective on farming and holistic living. So when we hear Vedic, holistic and all, it may look, what is this Vedic, what is this holistic? So to make it simple, just think it is just a talk about common sense only. All the things that we find in the Vedas are representation of common sense, and what holistic living also means only just living with our common sense. Don't think it is something big, it is just common sense. And Dr. didn't say that we both are actually veterinarians. My wife is also a veterinarian. We do our work together. So as a veterinarian, the context for a veterinarian is that, there is an oath that we take. All that I say today should be for the protection of animal health and welfare, prevention and relief of animal suffering, the conservation of animal resources, the promotion of public health, and the advancement of medical knowledge. That means, to be more precise, it is Loka Samasto Sukhino Bhavantu. So my profession should be such that it helps everyone, not just animals alone. By protecting the animals, actually, the main context is, it is to protect everybody. That is Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. So we take a lot of decisions on a day-to-day basis, and it has to be in line with our context. So now I've shown my context. So whatever decisions I take today, it should be in line with the context that have done. And our decisions are based on or influenced by the paradigms we own. we may, what's a paradigm? Paradigm is the way we see something, our priorities, point of view, frame or reference or belief. So always our belief or the way we see something influences the decisions we take. So unintended consequences shall arise if the decisions are not in line with our context. See, I want to live a quality life, but the decision I take, if it is not in line with the context, naturally I will not achieve the quality of life I'm looking for. So whatever decision I take, it should be in line with the context. So if I do not do it, then unintended consequences will be there. To solve these unintended consequences, we need to shift from the paradigm that influenced our previous decision. We cannot change anything at that time. That problem that we created is because of a paradigm. And without changing the paradigm, we cannot change that problem also. That is how it is. So we should be knowing all the things that we are seeing are whatever problem we may be facing, it has got a link with the decision we have taken. So what is the Vedic paradigm? So I told you the paradigm influences the decision we take. The Vedic paradigm is nothing but Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyati. That means the personality of Godhead, it is Purnamadam. That is, He is perfect, and what He has created is also perfect. There is no need for dependence or any other agencies to live in this particular ecosystem, which is one and not as parts. The whole thing is one. See, you see that round picture that I've shown there. That means each species is the bigger ecosystem is the outer round, and inner one is each species is a whole inside there, and they are all functioning as a whole, and they are all, each whole has a function to play for the bigger whole. That means it is intrinsically connected. Each species is intrinsically connected to all the other species, which means there are no parts in nature. It is only just one ecosystem that is there. That is the Vedic paradigm. There are no parts in nature, and the personality who created this universe is perfect, and what he has created is also perfect, and there are no problem in his creation. So all the technological inventions that we see around are man-made. And you know, there's a circuit diagram, and it is a connection of parts, and hence damage of one part leads to the stoppage of the equipment. That means you need to get trained to create technological something there, because you have to learn the diagram, and based on that only you have to do. So if one part goes, then the whole thing stops. That means it is a collection of parts. So that means there are parts in what human beings have made. But nature is not man-made. We are just managing or orchestrating it. We do not know the parts. We are saying it is a one whole thing, and we may think it is a part, and if you try to manage it as a part, then it ends up in a big problem. So we are only managing, just orchestrating the total whole that has been created, because we don't know the diagram of how it is written. Even by a wrong management, it doesn't stop functioning. If something goes wrong in our management also, it doesn't stop functioning. Instead, it self-organizes and keeps functioning. You might have removed one species by our wrong decisions, but still nature does not end function. You may face some unintended consequence, but it keeps on going. Maybe with an unintended consequence, that you maybe see a disease or so that is complex. You do not know the connections. That is our nature is a complex thing. Whereas whatever we have made, human beings have made, it's a complicated thing. We need to get this one. Which means nature is not to be managed in parts, but as a whole. Hence, see, if nature is one and there are no parts, then there is no room for competition in nature. If we are thinking that, I have to, for example, if you think that the weed is going to compete with my production, or the pest is there, it is all against the Vedic paradigm. There is no parts and should be seen as one, and the decision should be such that we see the whole. That is the Vedic paradigm. And the holistic context, that I had shared my context, but the holistic context or the Vedic context is, this was the Prajapya Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahimahisha Go Brahmanepya Shubhamstu Nityam Loga Samasta Sugino Bhavandu. So in this, this is naturally the context of everybody who is there. All the species wants to live happily. That is the peace and happiness is the context that everybody wants. And then it says, may the kings rule the earth along the right path. That means the leaders should be ruling along the right path. So who is advising the leaders? That is the Brahmanya. That is, may the cattle and the wise men have well-being forever. That is, the wise men are the ones who are in the Vedic times, are the ones who are supposed to advise the kings on how to rule in the right path. And then how do you know from seeing a community or a nation whether that community is functioning properly? Is by looking whether the cattle there or the cows there are happy. That is very go brahmanebhya subhamstu nityam. That is, are they happy always? So we are now any community, maybe India or any whichever nation you see, by looking at the happiness or the indicator in a system, how to audit a system is how are the cows there happy. Go not only means cows, it also means the Mother Earth. So is the Mother Earth and the mother cow happy? Just look at that. From that we can understand whether the kings are ruling properly under the guidance of the wise person. So which we will see what the happiness of the cow means in the next slide. May all the beings in all the worlds become happy. Peace, 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 and peace be everywhere. This is the context everybody is having. Even today, everybody wants this. This is the quality of life everybody wants. Now let us see the happiness or how the quality of life the cows are living, to understand whether the rulers are right or are we living with the Vedic paradigm. You can just, this particular sloga, that is Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 17th chapter, 3rd verse, speaks about the quality of life the cows are living now. It goes on like this. Although the cow is beneficial because one can draw religious principles from her, that is this, but from this particular animal, from this particular mother, we can draw religious principles. But she was now rendered poor and calfless. So one issue, she is now poor and calfless. So this is one problem the cows are facing today. She is calfless. That means she is separated from her calf. For what? Her legs were being beaten by an uncivilized. That means she doesn't have a good owner. The owner is such that, you know, he has separated the calf, and the cow is, one thing is the calf is separated, which gives her happiness, and she doesn't have an owner, right owner who sees her functions. And there were tears in her eyes, and she was distressed and weak. And the next point is she was hankering after some grass in the field. That means she wanted to be connected to the Mother Earth. She wants to graze. That is the thing. So these three things are the problems we are seeing now. That is, which are they? That is, cows are separated from the mothers. Cows are separated from land and are stall fed in shauchalayas, just where they are sitting on their dung and urine. It is a go shauchalaya. They are there. They are separated from them. The calves are separated from them, and they are separated from the land. And cows are not taken by care by the civilized. She doesn't have a good owner. This is not addressed even at this moment when we are having this presentation. It is the thing that is happening everywhere. Only when these three abuses are addressed can we expect the cows to be happy and any project with the cows to be sustainable. So that means at the present moment, our cows are not happy because this is there everywhere. That means our system is not functioning the Vedic way. So what is the Vedic perspective with respect to milking? So why this calf is separated is it's for milking? No. So the Vedic perspective in milking is that the cow and the calf shall be together and the excess milk only shall be milked. This is the Vedic perspective. That was how it was. And even during Krishna's avatar, when he came also, at that time also, people were separating the calf and the butter was taken. That is why he first went and untied the calves. Because that is not, that means he had to come because of this particular nonsense that was happening even then. You should understand. So what is that milking excess? This excess milk can come only in certain conditions. That is, when only in 4 conditions there will be excess milk in the cow's udder. One is when the soil fertility is excellent. That means the mother cow is so happy, excellent, and the nutrient quality of fodder is so high, leading to increased milk quality and quantity. the quality of milk will be also good and the quantity of milk will also be good, which can satisfy the calf's requirement with lesser quantity of milk. That means when she drinks little itself, she is contented, happy. The calf is contented, and so naturally there will be excess milk, which is the share for the owner who has taken care of her. Or it can be when the soil fertility is so excellent that the nutrient quality of fodder that the calf get access to eat by when she grazes with her mother, leading to lesser milk consumption. So because when the calf walks with the mother, the quality of fodder is so high that she gets the sufficient nutrients, so she doesn't need to drink more. In these two conditions, definitely there will be excess milk. There can be excess milk also in other two conditions. That's if the calf is sick, she cannot drink the milk, so naturally there will be excess milk. And the fourth one is when you separate the calf. Today's milk is from the last two. It is not because the soil fertility is good. It is because we are separating the calf. That is why it is. That is why you see, as shown in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the representation of the present condition of calves. So what is the Vedas say when you separate the calf and drink the milk? It clearly says, milk derived forcibly from the cows. The particular sloga reference is given on top, which you can refer. And the Sanskrit sloga is also there. So what is the consequence if you separate the calf and if that milk? What happens to that milk if you are taking from a cow whose calf is separated? Is the milk derived forcibly from cows is poisonous and leads to innumerable, incurable diseases. The irony is that when during COVID times, we never had any shortage of milk supply. That was ensured. That means the poison was ensured during the COVID times, which caused the diseases ensured. So this is what Vedas say when you separate the calves. That means the milk that you get with the calf separated is poison. And what the consequence also, it's told, innumerable and incurable diseases. There is another situation wherein the milk is told to be poisonous. So before that, I will show you some live situations that is happening now. See, this is a calf which is 4.5 months old with just 45 kg she has. The same calf, 4.5 months means actually it has to be somewhere about 100 kg weight. She is only 45 kg. The same calf, we put her with her mother and see what happened to her in just 3 months. When she got the milk. That means she was separated, and this is supposed to be her growth. But as you saw before, this is what she was. In 3 months, she came up when she was connected with her mother. See this. This is in another Goshala. See, this is a Gir cow. By looking at the cow, this is not the color that has to be. It's all ruffled hair and hairy coat is there. Naturally, for a veterinarian, when you see this, he will actually give a dewormer. There is some worms, so that is why it is happening. That is not what we did. The management was friendly, and they understood the principles, and they connected the cow and the calf. And this is what happened in 1 month. Same calves in 1 month, this is what happened. They all became the size change without any dewormer, just connecting the cow and the calf. And this is a picture. See, you see on the left, this is the January 2015, the photo I showed before. And then in that same farm, when they understood, and the next group of calves that came, you see the color of the coat and see what they are eating. Other than the cow's milk, they are eating the green grass. The previous one, it was dry fodder, and which they can't digest. So see how things changed when we started seeing things in a different way. So in the nature, not nature, when we manage, one of the weak links in the system that we are managing is the connection between the cow and the calf. If that link is weak, then naturally the whole system will be failure. So this is one connection. And see, in an organic farm, the social life of the cows is given high priority. Being with the mother means more than just access to milk. We know, it is not just milk. There are many more things. That is why we know that the child has to be with the mother. Many things, even grazing, everything she learns from her mother. That is how it happens. So this is a very, very weak link, that connection that has to be made strong by connecting them, and that changes the whole scenario of the environment. As I told, that is an indicator of whether the system is proper. If the leaders are performing properly, that is how it comes. So that is when you are separating the cow and the cow. So what does Vedas say when you separate the cow from the land? There it says, barriers in pastures angers the cows. The milk from such cows is also likened to poison. So if you separate the calf also, the milk becomes poison. If you separate her from the land also, it becomes poison. So this is the only reference where it is told that milk gets poisoned, even if you have the best shauchalaya where you're keeping the cows. If these two connect is not there, the milk is likened to poison. And another quote which says, such a person and society that keeps its cows in confinement in their homes suffer fall from grace of learned people and gods. That is, suffer from the grace of the Guru and the Lord which we are praying to. So you will never be blessed if you are keeping the cow separated, separated from the Mother Earth. If you do that, the milk is poisonous, and you will suffer from fall of grace of the learned people and gods. And in pasture feeding, there's an interesting thing that sloga you should know. When is that the cow should be sent for grazing? Morning strains of mantras when heard being recited at Agnihotra. You know, when the Agnihotra is being recited, it is at just morning time when the sun comes up. So morning strains of mantras when heard being recited at Agnihotras indicates the time to release cows to go to pasture for self-feeding, not to be fed, for self-feeding. So that is the time you have to send your cows for grazing. So cows are self-feeders. By grazing, they are working for us through the process of animal impact. So now let us see what will happen if you don't take her for grazing at that particular time. The next sloga says, one who keeps the cows at home to feed. The other one was self-feeding. Here is saying you are going to keep the cow to feed. You are going to feed her. Even after hearing the morning mantra, Pada suffers in life. That means if you keep, you will suffer. I will show you in the coming slides what is meant by that suffering. It is not that he will have some itch on his body. No, the suffering is very big. That I'll show you. It is not only for him, but for the full society he is representing. The function of grazing is their utility. If they are not grazing, they can become a liability. You know the state of all the goshalas today. Then consequence of farming without cows. See, now we say, if you ask a question, are you doing cow-based farming? The people will say, yes, I'm doing cow-based farming. Actually, what is happening now is dung-based farming. The cow is not being used. If you see, if it is the cow that is being used, then those if it is the dung that you are keeping the cow in the goshala and just taking the dung and doing the farming, maybe with Jivamrut or whatever it is. But those ill-advised who do not devote their time and labor for utilizing the family cows and cultivate organic crops. Now it is the dung of the cow and not the cow. That is the difference. And cultivate organic crops. They suffer through pest, insects, diseases thrown by Rudra. See, can be clearly understood. Even in organic farming, you have made an organic pesticide. And the organic pesticide comes from the urine of the cow. But when you keep the cow, the urine falls there and there will never be a pest problem in your farm. Now, why you are facing the pest problem is you are not doing with the cow, you are doing with the dung. And the urine is wasted there. That's why it is happening. So, the milk we purchase today is never recommended for human consumption because it is from a pregnant cow. Milk of pregnant cows come to you, it is not a dharmic thing, no, to milk a cow that is pregnant because he has to take care of the calf that is growing in her womb. And it is wrong to impregnate a cow that is lactating. So this is something common practice going on in dairy industry, that they impregnate the cow when she is just 3 months post delivery, and then she will be milked for the remaining 7 months. So the milk that you get today is from a pregnant cow. You are getting free hormones of the cows, which I think you didn't pay for. Milk cows in heat. That means there may be cows that have come into asking for mating. So that milk means it will be high in estrogen, which is not desirable for us. And then milk of diseased cows will be there. Then calf share of milk is sure there because we understood, no. The milk that you are getting today is because we have separated the calf. If you keep the cow and the calf together, there will not be any milk today because it is this milk, the cow is not eating from a quality land. So naturally, there will not be even a drop of milk for that person to sell today if the cow and the calf are kept together. During Vedic times, the quality of land was good and there was good organic carbon. Naturally, the fodder was good, and that is why people at those times could take milk. Now, if you want milk, the quality of the land should improve. Otherwise, it cannot happen. So it includes the calf share of milk and the milk of cows within 10 to 21 days of coming, because that particular time there is a lot of hormones and healing process happening in the body after the last delivery. So those milk is also not right. And milk of underfed cows. So this is what you get today. I'm challenging you, you can show me any brand which does not contain this. This is there in every brand. Only thing is you are getting it pasteurized in your hand, but the milk is this. So when we consume such a milk, we are also being part of the major abuse. So this is just for your information and necessary action. I would advise you don't be a part of this abuse. And then in other Veda, another sloga which says, throwing away into waste the cow dung and cow urine disfigures the society. So previously we saw that the person will suffer, or the community will suffer if you don't leave the cows for grazing when you hear the morning mantras. And another one is if you do not use the dung, if throwing away, keeping it in the shauchalaya, taking the dung and throwing it to somewhere, that will disfigure the society. What is this disfigurement and what is this suffering that I'm telling you? It is nothing but this is what will happen. All the things that we see today, because I told you, the happiness of the cow represents the prosperity of that society. But this is what we see today. And a big issue, this is called elephant in the room. It is, so what does that mean? All these problems are in us, and we are facing this today. And this is what is meant by what is meant there. As a big issue everyone is aware of, but which is being ignored because everybody finds discussion about it uncomfortable. It is only because of the two links in our system, that is the connection of the cow and the calf, and the cow and the mother earth. This is missing today. It is a very weak link which has to be strengthened. And this to strengthening of these two links, all these issues, the elephant will go where it belongs, and you can live happily in your home. None of these, see, this is how the modern, on the top you see the cows are kept like this. This is, you see, this is considered as a high-tech dairy. People are longing for it. In this system, we don't see any of the ecosystem processes happening. And now below you see another Goshala at the backdrop of two good mountains. Don't think it is a mountain, it is a mountain heap of dung. And you see the fumes coming from there. That is how it is. And now if the cows in this herd is having TB, why do we blame that microorganism, mycobacterium? The cause is that because any person living in his stool will naturally get TB, no? That is why we have more than 50% of the cows in India are having TB. This is how they are being taken care of. So we need a paradigm shift. We need to change the way we see things. So we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. That is, without a paradigm shift, if you are going to continue the same paradigm, we will not be able to solve the problems so far I've told. So holistic management or holistic living is it's just common sense, wherein it's a decision making. That is a nischaya buddhi. Proper decisions that it is just helping you in making decisions that enables us to simultaneously consider the economic, environmental, and social aspects in order to reduce the unintended consequences while trying to achieve the quality of life you want to live in. We know the context, we all want to live in a quality life, and we all know that it is the good water we drink, the good air we breathe, the good food we eat is what the quality of life we want. And that can happen only if we simultaneously consider these three factors: the economic, environmental, and the social aspects whenever we take any decision. So far, to be clear now, we forgot the environment. We forgot the Mother Earth when we took our decisions so far, and we are suffering for that. And as the slogas were endorsing, what will happen if you forget the Mother Earth and the mother cow? So to understand better, as the picture I had showed before, that each species is the whole, and it is included in the bigger whole. So each species has to function, has to perform as a function to perform for the betterment of the bigger whole. So what is the difference between function and the utility? Function means the purpose of a person or a thing or an activity that is natural. That is, you are designed to do that and you don't need any training to do that. That is what the function means. And utility means you have to get trained to do that. So what is the function of each thing? Every species that has been made or everything that the Lord has created has a function to perform. And that is not for its function, but it is for the bigger whole to function in a happy way. That is how it has been designed. So now let us, for an example, I'll show you. See, this coconut has a husk, and there's a function for that coconut husk. People normally say it is to protect the shell. That is not why it is there. It may be protecting the husk, but to break that coconut, that shell, you have to really throw it hard, or you need another tool to break it. So that is not for what it is. It is so that it floats when it falls. So it is supposed to be growing near the water bodies, and this thing is for the propagation of this particular thing. As it falls down on the water, it is taken away by the flow, taken by the sea water or wherever it is, and is planted in another place. And you see around our coastline, you see lot of coconuts. It is not actually planted. Many are not planted by human beings. It is planted by the nature system. Each and every seed that is there in nature has a mechanism of propagation. And you may be seeing some, maybe hairs, some it may be wings, it may be hooks. So that is how it is. So here the function of this coconut husk is for the propagation of this thing. But some people say it is for making the ropes. No, that is the utility. That's the difference. So utility is that what we have designed, seen, but the other one is what it is meant for. So the same way, what is the function of the cow? If that we need to know, or any species in it that we know. So now we'll look into what's the function of the cow. The swadharma of the cow. The primary function of the cow is its inborn quality of grazing. You send the cow out, it knows to graze. No need to train. That is what it is. And the primary function of the udder that you have, that is also main, it is to feed the calf. That is the function, that is the swadharma of that particular thing. And what is the utility we have fixed on it? The utility is we have fixed the cows for milk and the bull for traction. But for these two things, we have to train them. That is the utility part. The other one, no need. We needn't train the calf to feed from the cow's udder, or we needn't train the cow to graze. That is the swadharma. So now utility should come only after the function. You can use them for work or milk or whatever it is, but primarily they should be permitted to do their function. When a natural resource is not used for its functions, it leads to diminishing of the said resource, and hence it will become sustainable. They need to graze, and the cow and the calf need to be together. Otherwise, the purpose of that particular species will not be there. So this is the swadharma of the udder. That is, the udder is an organ designed to produce and offer a newborn calf easy access to its mother's milk. It is designed in such a way that the calf can get up and come and drink. This is a rare thing today. You cannot see now in any of the farms. They have to be together. So why is it that it is? See, that is the swadharma of the udder. Then what is the swadharma of cow's milk? There is a swadharma for the milk also. This is something that may be new to you. It is to grow the calf 10 times its birth weight in 9 to 10 months. That means if a calf is born with 25 or 40 kg, it should become 250 or 400 kg in 9 to 10 months. That is, this weight, when it attains puberty, it becomes sexually mature in 9 to 10 months. To attain puberty by 65, attaining 65, 70% of the adult weight, and then she will grow further, but when she attains that particular weight, she becomes mature. So the purpose of milk is to make her sexually mature in 9 to 10 months and to make her free from diseases for a full life. She has to get this share of milk, then only she will develop and she can be healthy in her full life. This is the function of the cow's milk. This has to happen. Unfortunately, they are separated, and now our cows, as the age of puberty, the range, you see, I'm not going, we look at the bovine. Bovine means the cow. It is supposed to be somewhere 11 months. It can start anytime from 7 months, and it may be 18, but now it is more than 36 months because they are disconnected from their calf. It is going further and far and far. See, for the female calves, you see 24. It is not because there is something wrong with the milk, because that range had to come because they were separated. If they are together, they will be in 7-9 months. That is, before 10 months, they will be sexually mature, and you can do the weaning, you can separate the cow and the calf by that time. Once they are mature, it is the time to separate them. That is what it used to happen. And that is how all the other mammals are living. Even human beings are living like that, excepting this poor animal. And that is why I told you, it is an indicator of the prosperity or the proper ruling. If it is going on, that is how you detect whether the system is perfect. See, another thing is, you maybe also new to you. See, we all have teeth on the lower and the upper. But you see, this particular species, which is considered so spiritually elevated, or no, we see it as mother cow. Why did Krishna not give teeth on the top? There is some specialty, she's not having teeth on the top. Why? There's a reason for it. That means, again, there is a function for this type of mouth. What is it? Just see this video. See, you can see that how the cow is eating. It is not eating from the bottom. It is just eating the tips. You can see it is holding with the tongue and just pulling it, like you take the tea leaves, just plucking the tender parts. They are designed to eat only the tender parts. This particular species is designed to eat only the tender parts of the leaves. That is how it is. But you know how a Goshala is being managed. We cut from the bottom and we chop the thing that they are not designed to, and we forcefully feed them. That is why I told the cows in India or anywhere are not properly fed. They can be properly fed only if they are grazed on such fodder. And you see, they are designed to live on the grass so that the grasslands recover fast and remain healthy. It is not just for, they are designed in such a way that, see, you know, a plant, any plant that is cut, if you cut at the bottom, it takes more time for it to recover. But if you cut at the top, it takes less time to recover. So that is why it is designed so that the grass recovers fast and it keeps the soil covered. So that is how it is being designed. Are our cows eating the top part? They are eating the part which they cannot digest. That is how what they have been given to. They are eating only from the top. Are our cows eating like this? So because their mouth is designed, are we feeding according to the design that the Lord has given for its mouth? No, this is what is happening. See, this is something which I had shared, Prabhuji had shared. See, you should yoke at least 8 at a time. That is what the Shastras say. Now we see wherever you go, you see only 2 bulls are being used for this. You see the first video, how they have connected the dry season, and the farmer is working at the well. See, even to draw water, they used to use the bulls. And you see how they have, see the 8 bullocks are connected in such a way and they are used. See the next one. See the next one. See how they have connected the bulls, and that is how the bulls, the tilling used to take place. Now, I'm not saying the tilling is right, but I'm saying they used to connect 8. You cannot, when you do with the 6 itself, it's a businessman. It is cruel to employ 4, and those who employ 2 are just, butchers. That is what our Shastras say. This is what is happening. Now, don't think a person using a bull for plowing is doing something Vedic. No, it's not at all traditional. This is traditional, how it was. See, and this part you see, the cows, when they are in the evening, the cow grazers bring them to a particular area, protect them in an area, they leave like that one night, and tomorrow they move to the next spot. And in the morning, they are taken to the grazing land and they graze, full day they graze. It's a planned one. Today they have to be in a particular area. And what happens to the land as soon as they graze? You see, this is one plot on the left side. You see, this is one plot where they were kept last night in Belgaum. See how the dung has fallen, uniformly fallen, and the whole urine, that full 12-hour urine and dung is in the place where I want. This is cow-based farming. Now you can farm on this land. Everything is there ready with the urine and the dung is ready. And because of the hoof action, it is properly plowed, ready for you to put the seed. You can put the seed before and even send the cows inside. And see what happens to the dung that has fallen naturally is immediately you see the next designed species comes in. This is called the dung beetle. They start to process the dung, and see what they do is they take this dung, make into balls, take it down, and bring the mud up. That means it is a plowing action that takes place. What did we do? We send the cows there and they just put that dung only there. See how the Lord has designed what should happen to the dung after it falls. This process starts in. See, this is in Jaipur and the other one was from Belgaum. Wherever it is, depending on the soil, that change happens. This is just within hours, it will start to happen if there is life in the soil. And this is what happens. Every dung pad has holes below. And you see from the view from the top, the holes that has come. Why do you need such holes on the land? Just imagine, this is the place, we kept the cows. You see the dung is all spread there. And now you understand that each dung pad has such holes on it. Now, where will the rain go when it rains next time? The whole rain will be readily taken down into the soil. Did we make any tank? We just prepared the land to hold the water. That's when if we love the rain, then we should give the rain a good welcome. And this is how we prepare the land for the rain to get harvested. We don't need any structures because we know the paradigm is that the Lord has made a perfect system. We don't need to construct anything to harvest the water. It will be harvested, but we need to move our animals the right way. These dung beetles will not feed on the dung. Will not feed on the dung from a cow that has been medicated with chemicals. That is, if you feed the animal with any chemical, naturally, none of this dung beetle will come and this whole process will get problem will be there. So that is how it is. See, each thing, there are a lot of species that see, all these species will come to manage the dung that has fallen, and this many holes and all those things will be happening there. That means you are making the soil ready for the next thing you want to do. Or it is the more the cow grazes, it has to be a planned way. That means even though the cow has grazed, it is adding to the fertility. It has not taken away the fertility, it has added the fertility there. Proper recycling. That is how this it is. So when you see the cows are grazing and if the milk is high, means the system is perfect. That is why I said the cows are happy, then that particular society is happy. See, regarding the plowing, what does the Parashara Smriti says is, an ox that is hungry, thirsty or fatigued should not be harnessed to a plow. A bull wanting in a limb or having any problem or diseased or impotent should not by a Brahmin be made to work. Just look around the bulls that are being used around you. Is there any bull that is not castrated? All are being castrated, thinking that, they have to be castrated to work. That's a paradigm that is there. But what the Shastra says is, the bull that you used should not be an impotent or a castrated one. He should be a bull. He should be having all the organs that the Lord has given him. See the next slogan, an able-bodied bull, free from disease, well-fed and hearty, and not impotent, should be made to work for half the day, that too only half of the time, and then she should be given a good wash. That is the recommendation in Shastras. It's so sad to see our bulls don't have the testicles. They have all been removed, thinking that a paradigm, someone did somewhere back and it is being followed, but it is not the way. And see about the plowing. What sin a fisherman incurs in the course of one full year? A fisherman is fishing and is killing the fishes. What if sin he incurs by killing lakhs and lakhs of fishes in 1 year? The same is incurred by the driver of a plow, share made of iron in the course of a single day. If you plow with an iron plow for just one single day, it is similar to a fisherman doing it for 1 full year. So the video that I showed, I was not endorsing the plow, but I was only showing you that the bulls have to be kept together. Not just that alone is not enough. You shouldn't plow like that. That is also not Vedic. The way we grow food today is not Vedic. And see, the seed should be sown on excellent soil. Wealth should be bestowed on a worthy recipient. For what is sown on excellent soil is never lost. That means the soil is what gives you a quality of life. Everything starts from a healthy soil. And life in the Krita Yuga has been the seed as its seat in the bones. In the Treta Yuga, it's a seat in the flesh. And the Dwapara Yuga, the blood is the seat of life. In Kali Yuga, however, life is dependent upon the food and the light. That means the quality of food is the need, an essential thing that you need today. But it can come only from a quality soil, and that can, if it is from a quality soil, it is very clear your cows will be happy because they connect with the calf and the connection with the land should happen. So the resources that you need in Vedic farming is also given very clearly in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The natural produce created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be utilized to maintain the bodies and souls of all living entities. The necessities of life are of three types, that you need three resources to farm. Those produced from the sky, that is the rainfall. Those produced from the earth, that is from what you get from the soil, and the seas or the fields, and from the atmosphere, that is the carbon, nitrogen, everything from the atmosphere. These are only the three resources that you need to farm the Vedic way. That is what Vedas tell us. And wrong decisions and their unintended consequences are still going on, as you can understand. It is still going on. No, we are not farming that way. So what we need is we need to understand. If you continue to do it this way, what you're doing now, you cannot expect another result. The result will be the same only. We need to change the paradigm. We need to change the way we see things from the utility to the function. Then only we can have a change in what we want. Like, the quality of life depends on the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. I do not know why people are thronging to the cities where you do not have good food, where you do not have good water, or where you do not have good air. You need to check your context. Is your context saying that you need good water or good air and good food? Then please recheck whether your decisions are in line with your context. And then decide whether to live in a city or not, or where you should live. And all of those things depend on the quality of the soil. So thank you for this short presentation. That is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at also changes. So we need to change the way we see things, not just the way we do things. Thank you, Doctor. I just wanted to put this introduction so that the remaining questions can come on this or whatever, please do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Srikumarji.